Fluorescent glow of the computer screen flickered against Richard's face as he sat hunched over in a dimly lit cyber cafe, the soft hum of outdated desktop towers filling the air. He wasn't in Thailand anymore. The scent of sea salt and bonfires had been replaced by the stale aroma of instant coffee and cheap air freshener. He clicked through his inbox mindlessly, the monotony of everyday life already settling in, until his eyes landed on one email, Francis. His heart clenched. Attached was a snapshot of paradise, their little beach commune in happier times, before everything went to hell.
You just made.
This scene from The Beach, a movie released in 2000, is one of my favorites. Maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe it's the way it perfectly captures something that's quietly disappeared. Cyber cafes. Back in the early 2000s, stepping into a place like this wasn't just about checking your emails. It was a ritual, a social experiment. People sat side by side, clicking away, downloading music on LimeWire, updating their MySpace profiles, and chatting on AIM with friends who were probably sitting just a few seats away. It's a place where you felt plugged into something bigger. And yet now, cafes are just for coffee and overpriced croissants. Their walls no longer lined with rows of buzzing computers, but with people working on their own sleek laptops, isolated in their own little worlds. But cyber cafes never truly died out. The ones that survived had to evolve. Today, they're not just places to check your email, they've transformed into high-tech gaming hubs, esports arenas, and co-working spaces. They're no longer just a stopgap for people without computers, but destinations designed to meet the needs of modern users. Powerful PCs, ultra-fast internet, and a sense of community that's been reborn into a different form. And maybe that's why there's something haunting about Richard sitting there in that cyber cafe, staring at a past that's just out of reach. A moment where he realizes that no matter how much he tries to return, some things are gone forever, just like the golden age of cyber cafes. Down a dusty suburban street in Lagos sits a small internet cafe called DT, a vital resource for low-income families without personal computers. Here, children come to learn the basics: typing, browsing, filling out online forms, even dabbling in graphic design. By 9 a.m., the first customers arrive, eager to get a head start on their task. They're greeted by 19-year-old Olorunzai Michael, who started at DT as an apprentice and now works there full-time. Despite the growing accessibility of smartphones and cheaper internet, DT still serves a dedicated crowd, about 50 customers a day. But business is struggling not just because cyber cafes are long past their heyday, but because of something more immediate: an unreliable power supply and soaring fuel cost. Internet cafes remain a staple in Nigerian public universities, providing essential printing and photocopying services for students. They also serve as reliable backups for when the university's power goes out. Staff members turn to these cafes to keep their work going. While internet cafes have faded into obscurity in many parts of the world, they remain essential in regions where personal computers and stable internet access are still luxuries. In countries with high poverty rates and unreliable infrastructure, these cafes continue to serve as hubs for education, business, and communication. Meanwhile, in places like the United States, where home internet is widely accessible, traditional cyber cafes have all but disappeared or evolved into high-end gaming lounges. Their rarity has given them a certain mystique. When Americans do stumble upon one, there's often a lingering suspicion that it might be a front for something else, like money laundering.
I do not know anything about any money laundering.
Or shady side business, rather than just be a place to check emails. when I was researching this. Someone said on Reddit, all of those things and more. Internet cafes were common throughout the world in the 2000s, but they are on their way out because of security issues and widespread availability for cheap smartphones. In my country, the US, internet cafes have a stigma for being sometimes fronts for illegal gambling. Japan, however, is a unique exception. In Agaretsuko Season 5, one of my favorite animes, Haida finds himself homeless after being evicted from his parents' apartment and turns to an internet cafe for shelter. There he meets Shikiban, a 21-year-old gamer who has given up on life, surviving as a net cafe refugee. Haida quickly realizes that these cafes provide everything he needs: gaming, hot ramen, manga, a place to sleep, and even a sense of community. This reflects how Japan's internet cafes have evolved into manga cafes, merging digital convenience with physical comfort to create an immersive home-like experience. While traditional cyber cafes have become obsolete in many parts of the world, Japan's version thrives by offering more than just an internet access. Manga cafes provide an extensive selection of manga, including every arc of One Piece for those looking to catch up, alongside free Wi-Fi, unlimited soft drinks, and paid showers, amenities sold separately, of course. Many locations also offer televisions, movies, console games, dedicated online gaming PCs, printers, CDs, DVDs, and vending machines. To enhance comfort, some cafes provide blankets, indoor slippers, web cameras, and phone or handheld game chargers at no extra cost. Snacks and full meals are often available for purchase at the front desk, making these cafes a one-stop retreat for both short visits and long-term stays. However, just like DT, the internet cafe in Lagos, manga and internet cafes in Japan also suffer from their own unique problems. Japan's strict work schedule and the rise of part-time employment have created countless net cafe refugees who cannot afford apartments and live in these cafes. Net cafe refugees are also known as cyber homeless and are a class of homeless people in Japan who do not own or rent a residence and sleep in 24-hour internet cafes or manga cafes. The term net cafe was coined by a 2007 documentary by Nippon News Network. In the dim glow of a 24-hour internet cafe, Fumiya, a 26-year-old security guard, hunches over a flickering screen, his fingers idly clicking through pages of the web as he chain smokes and downs another can of soda. His tiny cubicle barely has enough space to stand, but it's the closest thing he has to a home. When exhaustion takes over, he pulls a thin blanket over his face, trying to shut off the relentless buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. Fumiya ended up here because his part-time wages weren't enough to cover rent in Tokyo. An apartment was out of reach, but for the equivalent of $15 a night, the cafe offered him a small room, a place to rest, and just enough stability to get by. Despite the cramped conditions, he considers himself lucky. This place has showers, laundry services, and just enough to keep him afloat. In Japan, many people who technically aren't homeless still live in a weird in-between state, crashing in internet cafes, capsule hotels, or rundown apartments just to get by. A 2018 survey estimated that around 4,000 people in Tokyo were living this way, stuck in a cycle or renting tiny temporary spaces because real apartments are way out of reach, which sounds very familiar to what's even happening here in the US, where a lot of people, even myself included, we can't afford to buy homes yet, so we still have to rent because that's really our only option. But hey, maybe if you ever find yourself needing to rent a booth at a manga cafe, the process might seem intimidating at first, but it's actually super straightforward. After dodging salarymen and tourists on the packed Tokyo streets, you step into the building, take the elevator up, and find yourself at a check-in desk. The staff will ask you what kind of seat or booth you want and how long you plan to stay. There's usually a price list right there so you don't accidentally blow your whole budget. Once you pick, they'll hand you a membership card and a payment slip with your name, booth number, and start time. From there, you just find your space. Close the curtain or door if you're fancy like that, and settle in. These spots are dead quiet, so making noise is a huge no-no. It's basically an unspoken rule. Everyone's there to either grind, unwind, or pretend like life isn't spiraling. When Japan declared a state of emergency during the pandemic, many businesses had no choice but to shut down, and some went bankrupt. Internet cafes were hit hard too, but their situation was even messier. For some people, these weren't just places to kill time, these places were their homes. According to the Japan Times, some cafe owners were basically stuck in a tough situation. One owner in his 50s tried to close up shop but couldn't bring himself to kick out his long-term residents, 13 people who literally had nowhere else to go. He locked the doors to new customers but kept the regulars inside, helping them look for alternative housing while also scrambling to figure out support programs. I can't kick them out while it's still cold, he told the Japan Times. As long as they're still staying here, I will look after them. But keeping the place open came with its own problems, staying afloat financially, dealing with health concerns, and honestly just trying to survive in a business that was already struggling. It just goes to show how much these internet cafes aren't just some relic of the past. They're a lifeline for a lot of people. And while in some parts of the world, internet cafes have completely vanished or turned into something unrecognizable, in places like Japan and Nigeria and Laos, they've adapted into manga cafes or even makeshift homes. And hey, if you enjoyed this piece of content about cyber cafes and just diving back into a little bit of history of them and what they look like today, go ahead and click that follow, subscribe button, and go ahead and click that notifications button so you're always alerted. You can find me on Instagram at Rylan Benet, or you can find me on TikTok at Rylan Benet. Till the next episode, I will see you there. Okay, bye.
If you know